So we'll wrap up today with just a panel discussion, just discussing maybe some of the future trends, tapping into some of the things that we've talked about already today and maybe exploring them a little bit more. And we'll hopefully get wrapped up in the next 20 minutes or half an hour and let everyone home. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Graham Wilkinson, Head of Agency Partnerships with Trustpilot, Keelan Moran, Account Executive at Klaviyo, Paul Walsh, founder of All Things Amazon, Athelia, Director of Marketing and Operations for Materia Digital, Kieran Crean, founder of Wave OMS, Niamh Kelly, CEO of Tigam, and Katie, who you've just heard from TikTok Shop Ireland. Great. Firing squad. Okay, great. Let's set up this end. So, thank you for all.
Anybody not mic'd up? No, you are.
Oh my God, it's quite. I'm shocked. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, guys. So I might just start with a general question. I suppose there's no denying the impact that AI is having as a disruptor in the marketplace. And for many, it's going to add huge value to the businesses that we operate in. And for others, there will be challenges. But we might just maybe go around the house in terms of the value that you feel it might bring, or maybe some of the challenges that it might bring to the operations that you're involved in. Athelia, do you want to?
I do see like AI has brought in a lot of value to paid advertising. It's made our campaigns faster, smarter. It's added a lot of value because you're able to like customize it. There's so much of options that you can add to advertising these days than before. And our campaigns always, at this day and age, it relies on machine learning, AI intelligence, etc., right? But there's pros and cons to it, because if you're using a ChatGPT to get a strategy on how to set up a campaign, it will give you a brilliant idea of how to set up a campaign. But does it have experience? Does it know what strategies would be best for you as a business? Does it know your business personally? Does it know your culture, your brand value, etc.? I don't think so, because it can give you like a very generic content. But when you're with agencies, what happens is we kind of get in touch with you, we get personalized with you, we know more information about you. And again, like I'll talk about Adyo, we've got about 7 to 8 people in the team. And combined, we've got about 70 years of experience. When I say combined, it's all of us bringing in so much of knowledge and wealth. So what we're able to do is we're thinking from different aspects like content, brand, design, so much, user behavior. There's people who are very new to the team who has amazing ideas, and there's older people in the team who has business strategies. So all combined together, I think AI is nice, but then you really need a human to drive it home, And that's what I feel.
Yeah, and I think there's maybe a fear that, that retailers might feel, well, AI is there and I'll be able to generate my own paid advertising campaign now and push forward on that, and I can just get rid of my agency. But as you say, there are just so many nuances and so many elements to consider that AI won't know about your business. So there's still huge value that the agency will bring.
I totally agree with that. Just with, say suppose you're talking to a person at Google or even ChatGPT, they kind of give you loads of suggestions, but then you can't just run with everything, right? You have to understand like what's important for your business. It might work for one business, but then the same strategy never works for another business. We have to think about every single aspect. And I don't think AI kind of understands that. It's just not there yet, at least for what we see. It might, I don't know, down the line it might, but not currently. So I feel like being with an agency, you kind of get best of both worlds, because we are on top of trends, we research a lot. So yes, we do use a lot of AI, but then we have human emotions and experiences all connected to it.
To add to that. flavour on top. Excellent. Katie, there's no denying the impact of AI. Your whole business revolves around it. User behaviour in serving out those algorithms. So I suppose that's only making it more interesting.
Yeah, and just to relate it to TikTok Shop, again, coming from the ads world, we've released a new product. It's called GMV Max, so gross merchandise value, which is how we measure the sales on TikTok Shop. And it's a new kind of an ads solution for shops specifically that takes a lot of the guesswork out, so all the optimization stuff happens automatically, but ultimately the creative is still is what makes or breaks the ads, and that's coming down to humans. Yes, we've seen AI content, do okay, but we know ourselves, like, you want to see something a bit more natural and authentic. So it plays a role for sure. And I think the way TikTok has designed it is to remove all the guesswork from the ads piece and let you just focus on what they see as important, which is the content.
Excellent. Kieran, AI is going to bring a lot more to the likes of your product around streamlining that whole order fulfillment piece. I'm sure it's something that you're playing around with at the moment.
For sure. We're starting to use AI extensively in-house, right? So as a sidekick, whether you're coding or data analysis, or looking to upskill in a certain element or for target knowledge. Relative to, we're exploring a couple of avenues to put it into the product, but as you have to be incredibly careful on it. As Paul was alluding to earlier, if you allow it out as a essential element in your tool, you need to be sure that it's accurate. And that's the challenge with it, right? That the data that it provides, the information it gives you, it will always say that's bang on. And you say, well, what about this? Go, yeah, you're right. Actually, I was wrong. What about this? Like elements to how to optimize your warehouse. Where should you put a specific product, right? Who's your best resource over a certain period for different elements of it. So just that kind of conversational insights that typically you're building reports for that typically aren't used. And so we're currently exploring that, but we're very mindful that 2 or 3 wrong answers, the trust is gone in the entire product, right? So that's our challenge at the moment.
So maybe there's something there in maybe the recommendation, but it's definitely not there in the execution part yet. You just can't trust it on the execution side.
Or chucking a caveat for every answer.
Niamh, you alluded to it in your presentation earlier, and yes, we have a product description generator ourselves, which will allow people to generate a product description, but using AI to kind of take that to the next level and say, well, yeah, here's the description, but here are the complexities of how it could be more accessible, fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And when we're talking about AI, all of our minds immediately go to ChatGPT, and that's generational AI. If you think about the models that they were built on everything that has already existed on the internet. If you think about e-commerce and e-commerce sites from years ago, they're not that great. Product descriptions are not that great. You talked about the agri sector earlier, maybe a bit slow. If you're trying to generate from scratch descriptions that are really what they're doing is they're pulling information that's already been there. So they're giving you something that's already existed. Things that already existed doesn't mean that it's the best way for you to communicate with your customers. So the intelligence piece around what you're saying, how you're communicating is really important. I think it's great. It's great to get you from 0 to 1. If you're generating something new, whether that's text or whether it's an image, a product image or something or an idea, but it's not going to get you from 1 to 10 in that growth strategy. And it's really important to think about and model it based on your consumers. How are they behaving and the intelligence of where's the complexity. Then it becomes more powerful because then you have better frameworks to drive the LLMs or whatever you're using. But it's very specific to your audience, your product, your sector, which is different to, and in Ireland, people behave differently than in the UK, than in the USA. So your descriptions, your communication interactions might need to change per market. And we can understand that by things like Google Analytics, and so it's really important to give the LLMs the right framework and the right intelligence piece before just accepting what they output, let's say.
That's a really interesting point. Paul, how is AI going to sit with the all things Amazon retailers? Is this a value add? Is this something there? Is it going to pose a challenge?
Yeah, I think you can take that in 3 ways. So the first one is Google's, which was really well articulated. Google's full of crap. So do you want to intake that? No. So you need to create a box, and the box needs to be given, and Paul McGurran highlighted this earlier on, the box needs to be given the right stuff, and then your ChatGPT, your AI, whatever, needs to feed from the box. So that's probably one element. The second thing is, if everyone follows this, regardless of how sort of modern and how quick and how smart it is, I do believe that a lot of us will start following somewhat of a sheep-like pattern, which will then leave room for the people who manage to articulate it better to come up the side with stuff that's genuinely authentic and probably better put together. And then the other one that I've sort of thought of as well was I've seen directors, managing directors, answer emails about strategy with an answer that's clearly coming from ChatGPT, and I look at that and go, you're going to be out of a job within a couple of years, because we're in a world of UGC and authenticity, and if you stop the thinking and you start replacing the thinking with stuff that's generated from something, like, I think you're dehumanizing a lot. And I thought this through over the next few years. I don't want to know that this is the last book I'll ever read that was actually written, and the last film that was actually ever properly produced. Like, that's not where I want to be. I think we've run away with this a bit. There's a runaway train going on here, and I think the best sort of explanation I saw of the best users are probably the people who are top of their field already, will use it for processing power, but not for control of strategic decisions. And that's, for me, it's able to do stuff on macro, like an Excel macro level, that I was never able to do because I didn't have the ability to put that together. So for me, that's where the biggest gains are, but there's a lot of threats coming from the stuff I mentioned first.
Yeah. So automating the admin task as opposed to the deeper thinking side of it.
That's
yeah,
it,
absolutely.
yeah.
And that's generally what we're seeing. Keelan, talk to me about the power, I suppose, that AI may have to better inform and enhance the post-sale email automation, and maybe there's limitations there as well, because if we're going to let AI in there to kind of maybe make suggestions, maybe it won't know the nuances of the business. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think AI has had a massive impact on all our customers. So I suppose the one resource that's really tight for everybody is time, and it's definitely given back everybody within the business time. We talked about people having to wear many hats. So anywhere that you can find an efficiency is going to be a plus for the business. So I think that's probably the main thing that's really benefited, but it does make mediocrity really a standard, so everybody can get to the same standard with AI, and I think it just takes that human level to understand the cultural nuances that you might have. Like, if you ask AI to add rapport into your content, it's getting it from the internet. It doesn't understand the likes of Irish humour. So yeah, it's a fantastic tool. Like, it's sprinkled throughout our platform across the whole customer life cycle, so the team can use it to gain time efficiencies. But it takes that human just to take it to the next level. But yeah, I'm an AI enthusiast. I think it's like, I use it every day in my own day-to-day operations, and my customers have seen fantastic benefits from it. So it's all positive, but as I said, it just takes that human to take it to the next level.
Yeah, a real common theme moving across here, that authenticity. It'll stop that blank page effect, but the authenticity, there's always going to be space for that, which nearly brings me to your point, or to yourself, Graham. Then obviously reviews and AI, maintaining that authenticity, and any threats or interference that AI might pose to the authenticity of reviews, and some of the challenges you might be seeing there.
Authenticity to reviews is a really, it's a very popular topic, and we leverage AI to try and fight the battle against fake reviews. So literally we use machine learning models to try and model fake reviews so that we can remove more from our platform instantaneously. And at the moment, that's a battle that we think we're winning. We removed over 3 million last year. And yeah, like I said, like AI is something that Trustpilot has adopted for quite a while now, and it's something that we use to the benefit and the authenticity and transparency of the platform. We also, from a customer's perspective, we also use it where, like Keelan said, like to try and give time back. So people, if they reply to reviews, they can now use AI to actually generate those replies. It's not the sort of like a personalized reply that I suppose I should be promoting, but it is something that allows us to give time back, which is our most precious commodity to businesses and customers. And then, like, I think the value in AI is completely unique to different businesses, because when we give you that, when the technology gives you that time back, the value then is as an individual, like, what are you using that time that you've got to actually do? If you're not using it to do anything, then you're not really getting any benefit out of AI. But like, that's the sort of give and take that I think technology has when it comes to adopting AI and actually getting the most out of it.
Brilliant. Yeah. So the overall theme is automate the admin. Yeah, automate the admin tasks. Great. Thanks, Graham. So, Althea, back to yourself. There's been a lot of discussion in the last 12 months around server-side tracking. The phrase will be familiar to some here in the audience, but you might just indulge us for a few minutes, maybe just explain it to some of the retailers here, and maybe what the benefits are, how it has changed.
Yeah, sure. So server-side tracking, I think, is quite important at this point, because if you're a business who wants to make informed decision or smart decisions, server-side tracking is going to help. I'll tell you why, because at the moment, I think most of the businesses are still on a client-side tracking. So what that means is that, say, suppose somebody goes onto your website, the browser collects information and then passes down to your ad platforms, or any platforms such as Google or Meta, right? So what happens with the recent changes in, like, say, cookie policies or ad blockers or privacy restrictions, that kind of data is kind of blocked. It's kind of, it's not as easy as it used to be. So, say suppose a campaign is doing well, you never know. Sometimes it might be doing much better than what it is, because data is restricted with client-side tracking. But with server-side tracking, it's much more easier. It's much more different, I'd say, because instead of relying on browser, you're relying on your own server to actually collect that information and then pass it on to your platforms. And also, it kind of, like, what we've seen as an agency is that whoever has implemented server-side tracking has actually seen like about 5 to 10% of an average increase in performance. And when I say increase in performance, that can be either sales or return on ad spend, or even they've been able to make smarter decisions to say that, okay, where do they invest their spend in? Is it on Meta? Is it on Google Ads? They're able to attribute sales to the channels, because server-side tracking is kind of giving them that kind of accurate information now. We've also seen that you're able to, like, bypass, so say suppose you're future-proofing your business, because EU restrictions, privacy policies, there's so many things that's coming in play, right? And tracking is going to change, and it's improving every single day. So you're being prepared for the future. Like, you don't have to control, you've got the flexibility to actually, make changes and stuff like that now, and not do things at the last minute when you're actually forced down to say that, you have to do this. So I feel like it is the need of the hour at the moment, just given the situation where there's so much of restrictions in collecting information from your users. So yeah, it is an investment, I'd say that, because people do see it as an expensive investment. But what I feel is that it's the best decision, or it actually is an investment to future-proof your business.
Excellent. And Althea's here if you need to talk more to her about that. Yeah, great. So, Katie, you talked a little bit there about the uptake of retailers to TikTok Shop. There's probably going to be first mover advantage there, isn't there?
Yeah, it definitely is, because I know you'll all be like, there's a lot of brands on there, and there is, and it's the same in the UK and the US, but there are retailers doing really well. The one advice that I would have is if you do launch, and say you're like multi-category, like you sell quite a lot, even from a pharmacy standpoint, like there could be a lot that you sell within the pharmacy, leaning in on one vertical and doing that really well. So let's just call it health and wellness supplements. Supplements do really well on the platform. It's quite easy to sell the efficacy of, I had this supplement, I feel better afterwards. What, you know, like it's quite easy to explain, or if you're working with creators, they're able to do that too. So that would be the advice on if you are to launch, lean in on one thing and try and do that really well. It also helps with the interests and behaviors that your kind of account is nearly defined as, and it gets it in front of the right people. The other things in terms of early mover advantage, like we've got additional like commission rate reductions at the start, and then this whole intra-EU piece is very exciting for anyone that's interested in maybe testing cross-border without having to, you know, do too much there. So it definitely is still very early. Like we only launched in December. You know, I think it's 4 months now. And you know, more and more will come. The interest is massive, and it's just finding your niche, even within your own kind of category of products, of what's going to work for you.
Very good. And like there's some retailers here who are very engaged in their own content creation. I think the Content Creator Network is fantastic. It's great to have that as an option for those that aren't. Some of the retailers here might be working with other influencers in that. So is there any one angle that you would recommend retailers go with? You know, is there?
Not necessarily. I think like what you're already doing online can still apply on TikTok Shop, just in a different way. If you tell me you've got 10 influencers, creators, whatever way you want to call them, that you normally work with, let's try and get them set up on TikTok Shop if they're not already, and you work with them specifically. Or if you've never done it before, the network allows you to find new people and test them out. They post a video, do they actually make any sales? Like it's very black and white. Once you get in there, you can see how much sales they've generated in total over the last 3 months, 1 month, what categories they do well in, how many product sales, etc. It's very transparent. So much so that some of them I think don't want to come on board because they're used to getting some very nice flat fees. But we're working on that. But it just really allows you to work with, and small creators too. That supplements one I was telling you about, like she had 4,000 followers. Okay. Like it's not the big ones necessarily. So yeah, loads of different options I think, and we can always mend your current strategy and apply that on and see how that goes.
And is there any minimum commitment to getting on board, or what are the minutes?
No.
There's no barriers.
A platform commission, but like you close your account at any time. Like it's not a contract. You can stop selling, turn it off, turn it on whenever you want. But no, there's no like brilliant commitment like that as such.
Yeah, great. Kieran, you're seeing a lot of retailers. You're out there in the market, and you know, what do you see as maybe some of their biggest mistakes that they're making in terms of scaling their order fulfillment that some of the retailers might be able to?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It can vary, and it depends on the retailer. You know, very often you see, a hungry retailer online. Let's go for it, and then overnight they'll turn on 5, 6, 7 different sales channels, not realizing that. Everyone has to be minded to deliver customer service, and there's an operational resource to work off that. And again, products, you know, like you see retailers and they get a good base and they may have 500-600 products, and all of a sudden they expand to 5, 10, 15,000. And indeed, we launched with a bookshop this week with 260,000 references, adding 1,000 a week, right? So scale and difficulty scale comes with growth and ambition. Right, so you're growing, you're ambitious, but you also have to take a time back to say, okay, if the growth comes, how do I service that? And equally in our space, so we are very much in the operational space. It's very much about, removing the kind of the fulfillment barrier as a business, so that we make it very easy for you to do that. Because increased sales outlets, increased products, increased services. Add an extra courier, 1 or 2 on, how does that actually hurt you operationally? And how do you make sure you effectively hit the barrier and the customer expectation every time? So, like, there's multitude of factors that can limit scale, but usually it's moving 1 or 2 steps too far without actually thinking the consequences of it.
Yeah, it's really good advice. what about the future and drone technology? And I suppose we're just getting more and more impatient. We want our product next day. We want our product same day. Even see Man Drone delivery service suggesting they're mentioning that they're going to open in Cork. I think they announced that about 7 days ago.
Yeah,
where do you see the future
huge
going?
fan of it. I've never.
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately live in the wrong area.
Yes, same.
So I can't wait for it to come. But I'd be really pissed off if the flight line is over my house. The lawnmower's driving
the
through.
buzz. Yeah.
And so I'll probably try it once for burrito and never try it again, just to have the fun of it. But I think it's amazing. For me, I'm looking forward to going on to a website and on post, DPD and Mana Air, right? And clicking that, and ultimately that order will come down into us, print the label, we'll API directly into Mana. The order will be sent out and something come and pick it up and away with it. So the future, yes, but I'm still a skeptic. I cannot necessarily see thousands of drones over urban areas delivering product through.
Are you? Have you retailers using it at the moment?
We don't. No, we don't.
Okay.
No, we don't.
Yeah, it's definitely one to be watched. Interesting times. Niamh, how do you rate, or can you kind of rate right now? You're probably, I suppose there's lots of buzz around EAA, it's coming down the track very quickly. How do you rate retailers' response to it and their engagement and their openness to engage with it and move forward with it?
Yeah, I actually think that retailers in the e-commerce space are, there's a very, very low awareness of it. There's a very, very low adoption of it. Like I mentioned, some of the sectors that would be more advanced in this would be the banks, because they probably have more awareness that they serve everyone in the community. And retailers in e-commerce don't so much. And I always try to wonder what's the reason for that. I think that one, there's a lack of education, there's a lack of awareness around it. That's the main thing. Another thing is, I think that like if you have a physical store and you see 10 customers pass by your door every day and you have a step there and 2 people couldn't get in because they're in a wheelchair and they couldn't get up the step, you can physically see that you lost 20% of your customers that day. But online, we're so disconnected from the actual user. We think, well, when 95% I got 5% conversion, I got 6% conversion. Yeah, but you lost so much, and we kind of think there's standards that like 5% is great, or you're aiming for 5%. Why can't it be better? And I think it's really that disconnect between understanding the actual individual that is trying to check out, but also I mentioned a lack of data, because people don't really have enough access to the data of what's happening on the store and where the barriers are being created. So I think the education first, but then also the data piece. But I would say that Ireland is very, very, in terms of awareness, not ready. And some brands are starting to be, but I don't think so. The UK is much further on. The US obviously is much further on as well. But Ireland seems to be kind of trailing.
Yeah.
Hopefully that I run, I have an education network as well called Leaders for Accessibility, because I saw that there was so little awareness. So we run education events, webinars, just to raise awareness kind of in industries, across all industries. So that's Leaders for Accessibility, to find education and stuff about that. So we try to educate and then help solve.
I think there's going to be a challenge there as well, because sometimes e-commerce could be that a little bit more complex than maybe just an information site. And I think we all have integrations to lots of intelligent third-party niche service providers, be that intelligent site search, be it personalized product recommendations, lots of different elements. And I suppose curious, how it's going to land on those. And also, if I own an online store and I am integrated to all these third parties that offer a service, what if one of those aren't EAA compliant?
Yeah, all of those plugins are going to impact your overall
Score.
Accessibility and your score. The real problem is then if what these laws do and legislation do is it's giving a voice to the people that have mostly been ignored and marginalized. And so it means that as groups they can come together and they can say, I wasn't able to do something. And now there's legislation to say, actually, I have a voice and I can stand up against that. So it is important that the service providers that you're using, if you make your site accessible, you add a plugin, that can impact on that. And I think one thing to do is look at the service providers that you're using and ask them, what are they doing about accessibility? Because it's also a competitive advantage. So if you're going to have 2 plugins that you can potentially have, one is accessible, the other isn't, maybe the accessibility piece is the reason why you went with them. So it is a competitive advantage. Same for you and against other retailers. If you're more accessible, you build more trust, you get more customers.
Great, thanks, Niamh. Paul, what do you think would be the Irish retailers' response to the entrance of Amazon.ie? Are they going to? What's the buzz that you're seeing out there? Is there?
Yeah.
I'll sit back and wait, or I'll jump in. What's
No,
the
so
thought?
we signed more clients in the past 12 months in Ireland South than we did in probably the 3 or 4 years before that. So there's a response because the reality is coming in. However, because of Amazon.ie's apparent slow growth, we have recommended, way before the launch, that everyone does .ie and .co.uk in a single package. So I think that's the first way of looking into it. And the other one is, as I said earlier, it's a friend, not a foe. It's an assisted bit of revenue to your D2C, to your brand. And I think some people are looking at it that way as well. We made the decision with 2 of the retailers that their brand name on Amazon.ie would not match their brand name on their D2C, so that we are, I suppose, moving widthways on Google and widthways in terms of where they sit, and that was because of their own D2C worries. But I fundamentally agreed with them, given the scenario. Some people have gone with the same brand, and there's different reasons for doing that. So I think there's a few ways to come at it. The reality of the sort of U-shaped dip that I showed earlier on, and how few products are there, also creates an opportunity for whenever the marketing funnel of Amazon starts to lift revenue, in that the few that are managed to be there and are managing to practice it well are probably going to get a large part of the business. And if I had to guess, the reality here is the people who get the lead, and probably they would have a bit of size and scope already, they'll control the market for 10 years. In a few of the long-standing clients we have, they were a category leader 10 years ago, and they're still a category leader on Amazon.co.uk. So what I'm trying to do is have longer-term conversations with people where the calculation is not the earning potential this year. The calculation is the earning potential over 5 years, and that's based on the data that we've managed to compile probably in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Sort of mid-COVID we started doing that, and that's shown a long-term journey. And it's given confidence as well, because people are sort of wary of Amazon, but if you're able to get somebody who's been in that, me or someone else, saying that, we think you're probably going to fit between these 2 numbers and we can do this to try and improve the number, it gives confidence. So I think it's common. I think the scale of where Amazon will move to is strong. Very disappointing that there hasn't been a combined approach from a support body or a government body to take this on. Like, they're the biggest retailer in the world, and they have entered this country that relies on retail. So I would have expected more of a response that way, that would have monopolised and would have got people up, but that's going to be left to us to try and navigate ourselves to some degree. So there's a myriad of sort of different responses from people. I presumed there would have been more on board. There's been a wee bit of a confusion around where people shop. I think there's a lot still to come, and then I think whenever the data starts to come in, that revenue on Amazon is up to, .ie is up to 2 billion or 3 billion, people are going to go, whoa, we got to move here. But that could be 2 years away.
Cool, thanks, Paul. Keelan, it's getting more and more expensive to acquire a customer now, so retention. So many of the retailers are here looking at costs, and retaining that customer and harvesting the long-term value of the customer is so important now. In the recent research from Klaviyo, there was talk about email sign-ups and what actually drives the customer to sign up, and a lot of our retailers are working with Klaviyo, or at least have an email pop up. And if you are spending money to acquire a customer, you want to make sure that you at least get that email, so that you can then engage the customer and convert them into a long-term customer. So what do you see as kind of being the important driver of capturing that email and ensuring that retention?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So something that I've noticed is relative to the size of the Irish market, our databases are actually quite small. So traditionally, we haven't liked to ask people to give us their email address. I think it's maybe a cultural thing that we don't like to ask for things in Ireland, whereas experience from working with other markets, they seem to have bigger, larger databases. So I'd say first and foremost, I think the strategy needs to be around increasing your database. Like with the rising customer acquisition cost, Amazon, all those things are kind of playing into it. So the larger database you have of customers, that's something that you can tap into like forever. You don't need to spend any more money on that. So a couple of strategies really. Again, a pop-up is probably the most simple form. You can use AI. So a lot of our customers use AI to A/B test timings on different pop-ups. The integration with your e-commerce platform as well allows you to personalize. So say, for example, I'm already one of your top customers. Next time I come back, you know that I'm already going to spend a lot of money with your business, so you're not going to offer me a discount. You're going to ask for maybe my mobile number instead of giving me 5%. So what that does is it protects your profit margins as a business as well. And these things aren't complicated to set up. Like, it's really, really simple. A lot of this stuff is pre-built within Klaviyo. So yeah, I think my recommendation would be really focus on building your customer list, because that's something you're going to have forever to tap into across your different channels. Yeah.
Excellent. And but the percentage discount, that offer, is that still king when it comes to getting the customer in and getting that email address, that first email address? Obviously, if you're warming sends then thereafter to try and engage the customer, but is that the crucial bit in terms of winner takes all?
It typically is, yeah, it typically is. We do a thing with our they do love a bargain, but we do a thing with our customers where we use an RFM analysis, so we'll automatically group your customers into champions, loyals, right down to your at-risk customers. So then you can use that information within your email, within your pop-ups, to surface them different discounts and different call to actions based on where they might be and what they might be worth to you. So like at the end of the day, we're really trying to reduce your reliance on paid ads and also protect your discount.
Brilliant. Thanks, Keelan. So finally, Graham, just in terms of the impact of negative reviews, like everyone strives to do their best, and everyone's striving for that good rating, but invariably the negative situations happen. So when the negative situations happen, how do you turn that into a positive? What's your kind of response time? Do you have 24 hours? Any strategies that you could share with some of the retailers here around that?
Okay, so negative reviews. I think my advice to you all is, like, don't view a negative review as like, well, a negative review or a negative thing. The way to look at a negative review is more of like an opportunity. Obviously, it depends on like how the negative review has come about, but one of the most powerful interactions you can have on Trustpilot as a platform is the reply to the negative review. Because what people would do, you could have 1,000 reviews and 999 of them are positive and one of them's negative. If somebody wants to know about your business, they'll go onto your Trustpilot profile page and they'll read the negative review. But what they will do, they will read it because they want to see how you dealt with it. They want to see how you responded to it. And that's when they'll make their decision based on whether they're going to interact with you or not. So we see the good and bad at Trustpilot. We see people who will throw their toys out straight away if somebody says something bad about their business. But in reality, what should happen is if somebody has a bad experience with your business, firstly, you have an opportunity to learn from what happened to them. And if it's a continuing trend that you see in different parts of your business, then you can make a change and you can stop it happening. The other way to look at it is somebody will say something, you're given the space, the forum, to reply and get your point across, which I mean, some people will like argue it, but the right thing to do is try and get like the voice of your business across, because people will read it. So killing people with kindness, showing a little bit of empathy, showing people how you can turn a negative into a positive, won't just have an emotional connection with that one customer. Everybody else will read it and they will say, oh wow, look at how they solved that. Like they got in touch with them straight away and asked them to contact their customer service team, and next thing you know, somebody's changed the review from a negative to a positive. So yeah, it's not every single negative review should be seen as something negative. Let's put it that way. Like the changing from a negative to a positive is a really, really powerful interaction to have, and it creates a lot more loyalty in customers than just positive review after positive review after positive review. And in terms of timeframes of when you respond, I'd say it's more important to get the right response, get your tone of voice over, rather than try and get a reply straight away. Because some of the worst replies we see are the ones that are posted straight away. Like sometimes the best thing to do is sleep on it, have a think, talk to colleagues, whatever you need to do to get maybe a second opinion, and then craft the reply carefully before you do it. Otherwise, yeah, we see quite a lot, like some people who may be a little bit like hot-headed would reply straight away, and ooh, it gets feisty, and that customer's never going to buy from you again. So yeah, it's your open forum to get across like an element of your customer service, and like I said, that's the most powerful interaction you can have on Trustpilot as a platform.
Brilliant.
It sounds awfully like marriage.
Sounds like marriage.
We get a lot of negative reviews.
The negative reviews and opportunity. Brilliant. Okay, 30-second quick-fire buzzer round. I'll just run down along the line here. Either give me a trend that we should all be aware of for 2025, or what's the biggest challenge retailers face in 2025? Jump in whenever you want.
Donald Trump?
That was a trend or a challenge?
That was an open goal.
Uncertainty. Sorry, yeah. Uncertainty for sure.
Uncertainty.
Particularly around tariffs and selling across the block. I think that's just going to be crazy over the next 12 months.
Yeah, agreed. It's going to impact a lot of retailers, various different industries. Yeah, agreed.
I would say from an online or creative point of view, it's standing out. It's not falling in line with mediocrity because of there's so many templates out there that you can just copy from AI and stuff. So think about standing out and using that as your competitive advantage. Don't just fall in line.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that authenticity. There's always going to be space for it, and that'll be your competitive advantage. Excellent.
Live shopping. Whether you like it or not, I think it is going to grow in popularity. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Trend-wise, what I'm seeing on the client side is real difficulty with staffing at the sort of entry level, and what that's doing is forcing a lot of the pressure up on the senior people to do things that used to probably be a better spread. Like I've seen that more in the last 6 months than in a long time, and I think that's a big worry. I don't know where that's coming from, but can see the difficulty then in staff and structures and not following the way they used to.
Yeah, interesting.
I think trend-wise, what we're seeing a lot is, I talked about 5 trends earlier, but the main one is really the renaissance of customer loyalty. A lot of customers are seeking that from retailers, and that's something that we're supporting with our customers, especially in the consumable space where you need to purchase something again and again. And I suppose the biggest challenge is definitely the rising cost of acquiring customers.
Excellent. Thanks, Keelan.
I suppose, like from a trend perspective, I'd say just look forward. Like, don't wait for others to do it. Think forward, think different, I'd say, because there's too much of competition right now. So you have to think different. You have to think fast. Make the decisions. Don't wait for the last minute. That's my advice.
Brilliant. Well, if you haven't filled a page full of ideas and suggestions there after all those great contributions, yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. Great, thank you. I'll let you go now.